Hello and welcome. I'm Ben the Best 5 and I'm coming at you with yet more Kerbal Space Program content. In this week's video I am in fact launching from my base I built on Minmus to refuel things like SSTOs, and I'm basically gonna do a bit of a proof of concept mission, I guess, for an overarching system of relays or system of stations. So basically the general idea I'm going for is if I could build enough stations throughout the Kerbal Space Program galaxy, then I could build some SSTOs that could go anywhere. So my original idea was perhaps just go to Ike, because I haven't been there before, but someone in the comments did suggest that perhaps I could do something a bit more interesting, like turn Minmus into a staging ground for flights, make it sort of a big base and kind of open up the entire Kerbal Space Program solar system. And I also had the idea of, what if I also put some stations on some other planets and moons, just because that way I could perform missions to anywhere in the Kerbal Space Program universe. It would kind of be like a commercial flight almost, where you hop on to your SSTO, launch, and then stop at waypoints, and you can land on anywhere you want. And the beauty of this SSTO here, for example, it's heading to Minmus, is I'm going to enter an eccentric Kerbin orbit, which is great for ejection to other planets, and it'll have a fuel tank which is completely full. And also I figured, to test the true limitations of this system, I would in fact send my Kerbals all the way out to Jool and perform a really close flyby, basically just to, as you can see me lining up the maneuver here, I would send them on a really close flyby of Jool, and that way I could then, say that it's that because if I put a station on one of Jool's moons, for example, Val is actually a pretty good option, because it's nice and easy to get to, but doesn't require that much Delta V to land on or take off from. So, for example, if I put one on Val, and if I could perform a close flyby and then get back home, that would be a clear indication that I'd have enough Delta V to land on somewhere like Val and then refuel from a station there and be able to go wherever I want in the Kerbal universe and have nice safe passengers. So that's what I'm doing as kind of a proof of concept of the whole roving, going between planet to planet, kind of semi-commercially. That's what I'm doing. I'm sending a this demonstration flight from last video, which was all about actually getting to Minmus and refueling. I'm now sending a flight, all the way to Jool for that very close flyby. And by the way, what I mean by a close flyby is under 1,000,000 kilometers, or a periapsis of under 1,000,000 kilometers from its air quotes here surface, if that makes sense, because its surface is partway down to it, because it basically doesn't actually have a surface. It's actually just got a great big atmosphere, because the entire planet is one great big atmosphere. But to counter that, Kerbal Space Program, because it needs stuff to have an atmosphere, it can't. Well, an orbital height, it picked an arbitrary number, 400,000 kilometers into the where its atmosphere ends, and decided that counts as its atmosphere. So because of that, 1,000,000, well, getting within 1,000,000 is nice and close to the atmosphere, very very close to Jool, but not dangerous. And here you can actually just see me setting up that maneuver. I also wanted to do it because Jool has such a big sphere of influence. Doing a Jool flyby can either slingshot you out into interstellar, that's what I was thinking, interstellar space, or it could send you on a nice transfer, back towards your home, and even intersect its orbit. So I decided to do everything I could to get that obviously close objective flyby, but also end up in a favorable orbit, which would be able to bring my Kerbals home. Now you can see me just performing a little burn there. Not burn, maneuver node. That's actually just me, just making sure that I have enough delta V once I perform all my maneuvers to be able to perform the necessary height reduction burn. And again, here I am just getting myself nice in and close. Again, I did have to make a small correction burn, just because of how these things work, but yeah, I ended up in the right spot. As you can tell, I did manage to land myself nice and close into, as you can see there in the planned maneuver node, it's in the 900 thousands at the end of this burn, which I'm executing here, which will put me on the final Jool flyby. I actually end up a little bit close at 800,000 kilometers, which is nice within the expected thing, and I still have ample delta V left over because my craft is at about 1/4 full of fuel, which is nice and ideal. And I figured I might as well just get some nice pan around views of my craft passing by its periapsis, and I figured that while I was here I might as well collect some science, because this is still technically a career mode save, although I have enough of the tech tree unlocked to not really have to worry. I don't have all of it collected, so I figured I might as well collect some science. And yes, also you see it flying out of control there. That's just because the pilot had to get under the science, just simply because this only has one door, and that's at the pilot zone. So yes, basically my general idea from here in out would be to eject myself from Jool. By the way, the Jool skin, it got revamped a few updates ago, and I thought it looked really amazing then, and just seeing it now, I do think it's actually done really well, and it actually looks amazing. So good job to the developers for actually making the Jool skin look good, and I think it looks nice up close, which is something the old skin didn't do. Like, it just looked like an ominous and actually kind of scary green blob, but now it's actually a really nice and pretty looking gas giant surface, which I can really admire. Anyway, my plan moving out from here was to eject myself, use the ejection from Jool, and then perform a burn at apoapsis to reduce my periapsis down to intersect Kerbin's sphere of influence, and then use a rather small, slight air brake combined with a gravity assist from Kerbin to lower my orbit, and then perhaps make a second pass on Kerbin with the second assist and a secondary aero brake, which should then bring me down into a nice orbit. Now, that's what you'll see me doing. In fact, here's me actually performing my burn to do that. I cut out the maneuver node planning for that, just simply because I figured I'd talk about it enough, and seeing it actually happen would explain it sufficiently, because it's not, it's not super critical. I mean, it is kind of critical, but yeah. Oh yes, and I decided to kill a maneuver node there, which I placed so that I could see more advanced into the future, just to see kind of where I'd end up. And for some reason, it got in my way to visually actually see where my burn was going to land up. So that was actually a big issue, stopping me from doing it, and so I destroyed it, deleted it, and that actually reset my maneuver node, which is something I wasn't expecting, all the way to the full value, even though I'd already performed half of the burn, which was really off-putting and meant that I couldn't actually get the encounter I was expecting, because the burn was suddenly off. However, I killed it. I was basically just eyeballing it then to try and resurrect it, and I then killed it where I thought would be about right, and then I set up another burn soonish to try and mimic it. However, I did make a bit of a mistake. The gravity assist actually then was on the wrong side of the planet, and instead of slowing it down, it actually slingshotted it to a higher orbit. So that did make my process a lot more complicated. However, never fear, because, well, I was, with much patience, I was able to then perform several positive, well, negative velocity, but good for my cause, gravity assists, which slowed down my craft to a nice and slow speed, where I was able to eventually perform one final aero brake, which then put me into a Kerbin orbit, and from there I was just able to lower myself down and perform a questionable landing just off the shore of the KSP. And I will in fact show you my initial brake and my final brake. It took me the top timestamp on the top left just to see how many years this took to get done, but and I would have shown you all of them. It's just for the sake of time, and I don't want this video to go on for 2.5 hours. I'm in fact just going to show the two really important aero brakes. The first one here, which is just, it's a thing that happened. It's the fastest one, most dangerous, and the one I set myself up for. And the one that you're going to see in a minute is in fact the one that the final one, which put me into a Kerbin orbit, and then from there I just performed several passes through Kerbin's atmosphere to lower myself to a very nice orbital height, orbit, so that I was, it wasn't perfectly circular, but it was a rather decent low Kerbin orbit, as you can see here. And also I did raise my periapsis so that I could orbit freely and pick my landing site, and as per usual, as per expected, as per whatever, I in fact decided to go for the Kerbal Space Center. However, I actually didn't perform enough of a prograde burn, and I'm actually going to end up landing in the sea. And the thing that you should know about this craft is, in fact, it was not designed to land on the sea. It was in fact only designed to land on solid surfaces, so the landing is a bit rough, and look, 90% of the craft makes it, and all the engines survive, so 99% of its value makes it back to the runway. So that's, well, to be recovered at like 95% value. So, from a cost perspective, it's not that much of a deal, but big deal. It'd be nice to get the whole thing back to runway because that's ideal. However, well, I quick saved a bit too much, so I couldn't actually revert to a nice and stable point. I think by this stage in the mission, having performed so many aero brakes and so many gravity assists that they were turning me insane, I think I just want to be absolutely sure that I'd saved all of my progress and wouldn't have to repeat any of that ever again. Well, until I screw up another mission and have to do a whole bunch of recovery. So yeah, and there's me spinning again just to try and bring myself down as close to the Kerbal Space Center as possible. But we end up a little bit further than the island runway, which, I mean, it's actually relatively close because the island runway is only actually 6 kilometers ish away from the Kerbal Space Center, so it's still pretty close. Rescue teams could arrive there, no issues, but yes, landing on that runway would be nice. And maybe next SSTO video I'll make it all with the runway. I have landed on the runway before, but yeah. Also, I screwed up many times, so and I am just using my engines to try and point me a bit towards the Kerbal Space Center just to really maximize how close I get, because the closer you get, the more profits you make. And yes, it is a bit jumpy because I had to load about 3 different quick saves. Just because this thing, as mentioned before, is really not a water landing craft, even slightly. And to get it to land in the condition I was able to get it in took longer than it should have, let's just say that. And yes, I do have the air brakes out and the landing gear out just to try and maximize my footprint, I guess you could say, just because this thing really does accelerate quite quickly, and when you're trying to land, believe it or not, extra velocity and momentum is not necessarily a good thing, especially when that's pointing downwards. You want to point upwards. That's actually how flares work. And see, there's me performing my flare there. And as we're landing, that seems like a good place to give you an outro screen, because the last time I did an SSTO landing on water, that was a great outro screen, so here I am doing it again. If you liked that landing, please leave the video a like. If you want to see more of my content and support me as a person who creates videos, then subscribe to me and press the notification bell just so you don't miss out on stuff. If you'd like to say anything or let me know anything about the video or plans, let me know in a comment. Other than that, thank you for watching and have a great day.